That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
All right, guys, a couple things. One, I'm sorry for all the Patreon people. I told y'all that I was going to get y'all an exclusive podcast today, yet I just saw this Derrick Henry news. Felt like it was necessary that I got this out, got my initial thoughts, because I didn't even know this happened. I deleted Twitter off my phone, everything taking up too much time, but I went to the Patreon Discord chat and saw people were talking about Darrington Evans, and I was like, wait, what's going on? And then I looked into it, saw Derrick Henry sign this extension, figured I have to get this information out now. Figured that it's probably best for people who have rookie drafts anytime soon, for people who are just looking to make dynasty trades anytime soon, that they kind of have a grasp of at least how I'm viewing this situation for whatever that means. But before we get into it, I want to give a massive thank you to everyone who has decided to support the show lately on Patreon. I mean, we've had multiple people join just in the past couple days on the creator tab. And I mean, guys, that helps me a ton. That allows me to not have a job and just continue doing this research, continue hosting Dynasty Leagues for y'all to play in and talking Dynasty with y'all 24/7. I cannot appreciate y'all enough. I mean, I go out there, tell y'all all the time, but I really do, guys. I really mean it. But nonetheless, let's talk about Derrick Henry and his contract. And I know everyone's saying, oh, a 4-year contract, what a big deal. 4 years for Derrick Henry. He's locked up for good. He's going to be a Tennessee Titan for the rest of his career. And guys, I mean, we've seen this story over and over and over again. The 4 years means absolutely nothing. But what matters is the guaranteed money. And if you're looking at the 4-year part of it, I mean, you're pretty much just like a common fan that looks at Adam Schefter's tweets and doesn't really look into the details and what it truly means. So I haven't seen the exact breakdown of the years and the guaranteed money coming out yet, but it's said to say it's $25.5 million guaranteed. So how I'm imagining this deal is I think it's probably going to be very front-loaded with guaranteed money, and the back end of it is just going to be fluff that Derrick Henry is most likely never going to see. Keep in mind, please go to sporttrack.com whenever you're watching this video, because I'd imagine by tonight there's going to be the exact details out there. So if I'm saying that it's probably only a 2-year deal, I mean, they have a great little thing where they just make sure you know where this contract cuttable. I am making a guess right now that this is going to be cuttable after the 2022 season. Nonetheless, it's still a significant deal in Dynasty Leagues, especially for anyone going out there and acquiring either Derrick Henry or Darrington Evans. And I saw this situation and I told people on Patreon as well. I thought what was going to happen is Derrick Henry was going to play under the franchise tag. I thought that he was going to be run into the ground by the Tennessee Titans, and then that was going to be really the end of the story. I did not expect this extension to come, especially this late in the offseason. And Derrick Henry, more than anybody, deserves it. I don't know if it's going to help the Tennessee Titans in the long term. We all know the argument that do running backs matter? Should you pay running backs? I'm not going to try to make this video about that. I'm going to try to make this video about the dynasty implications of what this deal does, and I'm going to look at it as a scope that it's likely a 2-year deal with the guaranteed money, and I think this would make sense because Derrick Henry is not a young running back. I know Derrick Henry has not necessarily been at the top of the league very long. He busted out last offseason, but he's been in Tennessee forever. I mean, he was going in, if you've been playing Dynasty long enough, or even if you've just been a casual football fan, I mean, you've known who Derrick Henry was pretty much his entire career dating back to Alabama. I mean, I think we've all seen the Derrick Henry hilarious statistics at this point that have circulated around Twitter, and pretty much since he's been in the NFL, of his high school football statistics. I mean, just stuff that you would never really expect that any human could pull off. But Derrick Henry is that superhuman. Derrick Henry is the guy that looks like a middle linebacker playing running back. But nonetheless, he's been in the league for a while. He doesn't have a ton of career touches, but he's still 26 years old. And I know this does not sound like a big deal for most people, but we have to keep in mind, running backs fall off a cliff very fast. I mean, we look at 26 years old, and that's older than Todd Gurley is right now. I mean, we have to keep this into context. Derrick Henry is definitely a short-term player. If you are buying Derrick Henry, you're not buying him for any 4-year outlook. You're probably just going to be looking at his fantasy production in 2020 and 2021. And I know some of y'all are going to listen to that and say, oh, I mean, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. But please go look at historical trends. This is what happens. I mean, these running backs come on very strong. They are very good for a short period of time, and it's just because it's the nature of the running back position, and teams would rather go out there, draft a new running back in the 3rd or 4th round, give them touches instead of giving a 28-year-old running back who's going to command a significant salary touches. So nonetheless, this is going to be a 2-year deal from my outlook. And let's talk about what we can expect from Derrick Henry in this offense in 2020 and 2021. So I know I kind of missed Derrick Henry in a couple leagues. I hit on him where it really mattered in 2019. And I think if you play in any points per carry leagues, that's where you should have always been getting Derrick Henry all along, because he is going to rush the ball, and that's pretty much all he's going to do. In 2019, he averaged 20 rushes a game, over 100 rushing yards a game. But if we look at his receiving statistics, I mean, he's getting a reception a game and about 13 receiving yards. And I know I say this all the time, but we are not building an NFL team. We are not a general manager for the NFL, or we're not even playing Madden. We're just trying to score these fake points, which are fantasy points. And how we get those, so we get those through touchdowns and receptions. And Derrick Henry, he can be the outlier. We already saw it. He was the outlier in 2019. Pretty much every numbers person lost money on him every single week in DFS on DraftKings, week after week after week, as Derrick Henry did what was seen to be as an impossible task, putting up numbers where we never really thought it was possible without getting those high leverage touches. Yet we go into 2020, and the main question we got to ask ourselves is this sustainable? And my answer is no. I don't think that he's going to put up the same production that he did in 2019 and 2020. But that's easy to say, especially when the community agrees with you. And we see this by his price going into 2020. Because if the consensus was that Derrick Henry was going to be the same running back in 2020 that he was in 2019, I mean, he obviously would be going significantly higher in both redraft leagues and in dynasty leagues. But people kind of at this point understand that you can't consistently bet on outliers and expect to win. And the reason that I think this 2019 season by Derrick Henry is an outlier is the other running backs in his backfield. If we look at the other running backs in his backfield, I mean, he had 29-year-old Dion Lewis competing for touches. Now, I'm not going to say that Derrick Henry would have given an average running back significantly more touches than Dion Lewis received, but at the same time, we have to look at this situation, realize, hey, in 2019, Derrick Henry had nobody behind him. And if we're looking at this 2020 situation where they just took Darrington Evans in the 3rd round, which honestly, this is why this surprises me with this long-term contract. I thought with them going out there, spending a 3rd round pick on Darrington Evans, that was maybe preparing them to move on from Derrick Henry after this franchise tag season. Yet we see the exact opposite happen. And I think this is maybe similar to the situation that we're seeing with Alexander Mattison and Dalvin Cook in Minnesota. Maybe that they took Darrington Evans just as an insurance policy if they could not get a long-term deal done with Derrick Henry. And if that's the case, maybe you can project Derrick Henry to have the same workload that he saw in 2019 and 2020. But the thing is, we have to understand that it's going to be a losing bet if you do that over the long haul. And what I'm expecting from Derrick Henry is I'm expecting him to still be one of the top fantasy running backs in the NFL for the foreseeable future, but we can't expect that top 3, top 4 running back finish unless he's going to really come in with a ton of rushing touchdowns, which I'm not going to say is impossible. Derrick Henry can go out there, and that's the one way that he can surpass his 2019 season. I think we are going to see the touches come down, but if we see less touches in the between the 20s and we see more touches in the red zone for Derrick Henry, even if his overall touches are down, we can see his fantasy production skyrocket. So if Darrington Evans is going to come in, he's going to take some touches away that are not necessarily high leverage touches. I think this could maybe be seen as a good thing for Derrick Henry if Ryan Tannehill is able to take this Tennessee Titans offense to the next level. And that's something that we can't necessarily 100% project, but we always have to look at things through a range of outcomes lens. So if we're looking at Derrick Henry, I think the likely situation is he's going to be a low-end RB1 strictly based off volume, and the only way he can capitalize and hit that high-end RB1 season is if the Tennessee Titans is near the top of the league and if he is able to cash in on 14, 15 touchdowns this season, which I'm not going to say is impossible. Obviously, Derrick Henry is one of the most talented rushers in this entire league. Now, let's talk about what this does for the other guys in the offense. Ryan Tannehill and A.J. Brown, some guys that I talked about actually being a good potential stack in your dynasty startups. And I did this with the thought process that maybe the Tennessee Titans wouldn't go as run heavy in 2020 as they did in 2019 because they were such an outlier in 2019. But with them spending a third-round pick on a rookie running back and them going out there and signing Derrick Henry to this deal is telling me is they are still planning on going out there and trying to be the league leader in terms of rushing attempts. And that's something that's obviously not going to be good for Ryan Tannehill. It's going to be almost impossible for him to repeat the efficiency that he had in 2019 going into 2020. So Ryan Tannehill and A.J. Brown maybe went as a sneaky stack for me to where I'm probably going to be avoiding this passing offense where I can. Obviously, if you see a great value on one of these guys, you can go out there and grab them. But with A.J. Brown, I mean, he's a guy that unless you see him at the very bottom of his range of outcomes in terms of where he's drafted in startups, I'm never getting A.J. Brown. I sent out a tweet last night just because I've been seeing A.J. Brown sneak higher and higher this offseason in startup drafts. So it was really funny. At the very beginning of the offseason, he started as an absurdly high Dynasty startup pick. Then everyone went on their Dynasty podcast or wrote little bit of articles about A.J. Brown, and his ADP really fell, but it's starting to creep back up. So I think I may be jumping back off and not own A.J. Brown anywhere, especially if they decide to go more run heavy in 2020 than they possibly even were in 2019. Now, what I am going to say is if you can go out there and you can buy Darrynton Evans, if this opens the buying window for him, I am completely okay with doing that because Darrynton Evans, if anything happens to Derrick Henry, will have league-winning upside. Obviously, he's going to be stepping into a role where he has the draft pedigree, so the Tennessee Titans may be willing to give him a full workload. He's an okay pass catcher. He has okay size. He's only 22 years old. So I'm looking at him as pretty much an Alexander Madison that's not necessarily has a path to touches right away. So if you can get him at a discount, I'm definitely going to be going out there. I don't think I have him on a single Dynasty team yet, but I'm probably going to go out there and try to pick him up at a discounted price. Now, I know I've been pretty much just repeating myself now for the past couple of minutes, so probably time to end the video. But first, actually, let me talk about where exactly I'm valuing Derrick Henry after this trade, because I know that's what everyone wants to hear. And I think I'm going to keep his value about the same as where it was before. And if you don't know where he was going, I mean, if we look at the majority of the Flock fantasy football leagues, he's going right in a range behind Nick Chubb, behind Josh Jacobs, behind Miles Sanders, and right ahead of Kenyon Drake, Austin Eckler, and Aaron Jones. And I think what this happens is he's going to be pushed up closer to the Nick Chubb, Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders tier. I don't think he's going to necessarily jump any of those running backs, but he's going to be a lot closer to that tier than the tier he was going at before, which was the Kenyon Drake, Austin Eckler, Aaron Jones, the guys who necessarily did not have long-term great outlooks, but were good 2020 projections. So if Derrick Henry, you're going to be able to buy low-end RB1 production for the next 2 seasons, in my opinion. And if you can get that at a decent price, I would. If not, go sell Derrick Henry. Go try to get a DeAndre Swift and a couple rookie picks to go along with it. And that's a move that I would also be interested to make depending on my team situation. Now, that's all I got for y'all. Really hope y'all enjoyed the video. Really hope y'all got something from it. As always, if you did, make sure you subscribe and make sure you like the video.